What happens when a 15-minute city becomes your 15-minute city? Police, officials, and mayors watching your carbon footprint and your carbon emissions at every turn. We're about to find out. Let's go! This is Stephanie, and this is Truth Detective. First of all, I want to say Happy New Year to all of you. I hope 2023 will be the best year ever for all of us. Thank you to my first-time listeners. This is where we give you evidence-based facts so that you can make informed decisions to continue your research. Go to truthdetectivepodcast.com to get to my past episodes. Question everything. If not by this podcast, Truth Detective, we all have heard of the World Economic Forum. That's right, Klaus Schwab, Henry Kissinger, Bill Gates, Anthony Fauci, all of the big shots are the World Economic Forum, and they want to control everything that we do. We cannot let that happen. So the more we know, the better we are as a society. We may not have all the solutions to combat the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset, but the more information you share, the better we are. We have to get to a point where we are not controlled by the World Economic Forum, the global elitists like Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci, who hopefully, and yes, I believe, has finally gone into retirement. And yes, as we all know, we have to reclaim our freedoms back from all of the evil that is going on right now. We are truly screwed if we do not do something, change something, say something. Don't be afraid to make your voices heard. That is so important. A matter of fact, many months ago, I was always afraid to say what I thought. Now, guess what? It doesn't matter because I know that our country is at stake and our freedoms. So you must not be afraid. So before I get started on the 15-minute city, and if you don't know what that is, you will after this episode, I want to share an audio clip that came out from the Canadian government right before Christmas. It's pretty cringeworthy. Listen to this one.
Well, kids, I'm just doing my yearly call to the North Pole for Santa's holiday health check.
Ho, 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 ho.
Why, hello, Dr. Tam.
Mrs. Claus, so good to see you again. Where did Santa go?
Oh, Santa was late for snow yoga with the elves and reindeer. He says it's great cross-training for sleigh driving.
Sounds fun. Are you all set for the holiday season?
Of course. I must say, Dr. Tam, it just warms my heart to see everyone in Canada, especially kids, working so hard to keep the holidays safe and cheerful for all.
So am I, Mrs. Claus. Every child in Canada has definitely earned a place on the nice list. Their parents and caregivers too. It's been a tough season with lots of viruses making people sick.
Thankfully, Santa and I are feeling as healthy as ever. We are both up to date with our vaccinations, including COVID boosters and flu shots.
That's so good to hear.
I always tell Santa to make a list and check it twice. 1, stay up to date on your vaccinations. 2, wear a mask in crowded indoor places and make sure it fits nice and snug. 3, wash your hands to the tune of jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Great advice. Great voice too. Also, you can be sure to stay at home if you're feeling sick. And if you're gathering indoors with other people or elves, open a door or a window for a few minutes at a time to let in some fresh air. The more items you check off the list, the more protected you are.
Yes, you can think of it like decorating a tree. You need tinsel, lights, ornaments, and the star on top. The tree is at its best when all the decorations are up and nicely layered.
Thanks, Mrs. Claus. Happy holidays, everyone.
Well, good thing you can't see me. I almost vomited in my mouth. Now that was put out by Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, using taxpayers' money to do so. That is disgusting, to say the very, very least. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, is part of the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. We must not forget that. He is the young globalist leader that will take over when some of the elder World Economic Forum members pass away. So it's very, very important that we look at things like this and hear things like this that will change society and affect us in profound ways going forward. Tyrannical is just one word that I would use for him. But that's what the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset is all about. Dictatorship, tyrannical rule, fascism, all the things that we hate and the things that we don't appreciate having in our lives at all. We, after all, are people that make our own decisions about how we're going to live our lives. Peaceably protect our freedoms right now while we still have them. This just goes to show you that apparently COVID-19 is not over. And just in time for the pre-Christmas get-togethers, we get to see the Canadian government spew some Christmas propaganda about getting vaccinated. So where is the Great Reset going next? Well, it is still going to pursue the vaccine and getting boosted and boosted and boosted maybe 5-6 times. But get ready, they're not done yet. The next big thing is the climate change alarmism. Remember Charlie Chester at CNN telling us by way of Project Veritas's undercover reporting about how climate change was going to be the next big thing. Let's roll another audio clip. Here we go.
CNN's technical director, Charlie Chester, said the media company's next focus will, quote, that they will beat to death, like they did with the pandemic, will be climate change.
We're going to start focusing mainly on climate like global warming, and like that's going to be our next it's going to be our focus. And our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
So that's like the next
pandemic like story that will beat to death. But that one's got longevity. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a definitive ending to the pandemic, or it'll taper off to a point that it's not a problem anymore. Climate, I think, is going to take years, so they'll probably be able to milk that for quite a bit.
So did Charlie Chester just say we're going to beat to death the climate change and we're going to milk that one for as long as we can? I believe he did. And that is exactly what I want to talk about in this episode. Finally, climate change alarmism. What an interesting, not so very new topic. The Great Reset has many ways to do the climate change alarmism type of life that we're going to live. And there are a lot of components to it. But one component is something that is getting everybody outraged, and I don't blame them. It's a concept that is called the 15-minute city. What is that? We already know that climate change is a big issue. We already see young climate change activists throwing paint on Van Goghs and gluing their hands to walls and destroying Andy Warhol's artwork in France, all for the sake of climate change awareness. Boy, oh boy, have they got the wrong idea. Climate change seems to be the order of the day when scaring everybody, it seems, young adults and children alike. If you go back into Klaus Schwab's history, quote unquote, and the history of the Great Reset agenda brought on by power-hungry elites, we can see this climate agenda was always a big part of the plan after COVID. All you have to do is read his book, and it is called COVID-19, The Great Reset. He also has a book that's out that is called The Great Narrative. Environmentalism, a greener, lower CO2 world, works like a charm for many people because it sounds so good, so utopian. Look around and you will see the proof. Solar power panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, and the lowering of CO2 are being pushed on us at every turn. It does seem that way. We are told that we must save the planet. Help, our planet is going to blow up, and that we are the ones that created this climate problem. No, we aren't, by the way. By using the Great Reset, we must take this golden opportunity to change the world by way of climate change. That is what they believe. They believe inconvenience be damned. We all must collectively save the earth from extinction. Listen to us, because we know best what is good for you. But do you? Do you really know what's good for me? On the World Economic Forum website, there is a thoughtful article on why the 15-minute city works, especially in urban cities in Europe. So now let's dive into this concept of what is coming for all of us, eventually, for everybody's own good. And what does this encompass? Apparently, an easier, more climate change sensitive way of living in your own community. It's the 15-minute city. Yay! Here, listen to Katie Hopkins as she describes a trial city that's going to be rolled out in Oxford, England, just to see if it works.
The plan is in Oxford, and this has just been passed by the council, to divide the city here into 6 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you will only have the freedom to operate in the part that you live. So if this is you, the idea is that everybody will live within 15 minutes of the things they need. 15 minutes of a school, 15 minutes of a doctor's, 15 minutes of a supermarket. And if you want to travel to the other zones in your city, or maybe soon your town, you will have to go out an approved route. You will have to journey around the outside of the city in order to re-enter another section of the city. This plan is supposed to be saving the planet. And the idea is that you won't simply be able to cross over into other sections of your city anymore. So if your mother, for example, lived over here, you wouldn't be able to just go across and see her. This would all be done via e-gates, electronic gates, and number plate recognition. You in your area will only be allowed within that 15-minute zone that you've been allocated. The number plate recognition will know if you leave your zone, and you can apply for permission, a permit to leave your zone and travel to another zone, but you'll only be allowed to do this about 100 times a year. This is real. I just have to stop and say that. This is actually being passed by Oxford Council in the next 2 years, 2024 it begins. And if you use up all your 100 passes that someone designates whether you're allowed to have to go into the different zones, you'll be fined. Your number plate will be recognised. It will observe that you've gone somewhere you're not allowed in your own city, and it will fine you £100 or £80 or whatever the fine number is.
Well, that sounds like fun. But who invented the 15-minute city concept? Professor Carlos Moreno invented this framework. The award, the 2021 Obel Award, selected by a 5-person jury, is an international prize to honor outstanding architectural contributions to human development all over the world. The jury recognized the 15-minute city as an ambitious and complex urban strategy, but also a refreshingly pragmatic approach that can be adjusted to local culture, conditions, and needs. You see, the 15-minute city is an intuitive concept and has the capacity to deliver tangible changes in people's lives. For those reasons, it has proven easy to translate into political programs and policies that transform cities. The Opal Award statement enumerates the following benefits of the 15-minute city. Well, better health and quality of life, a more environmentally sustainable city, a more equitable and inclusive city, a boost to local economy, all those things. Well, that doesn't sound so bad, except for the part that said political programs and policies that transform cities. I don't want to live there, where political programs and policies make up the city that I live in. It's true. Usually when it comes down to words like political programs and policies that transform cities, it's never a good thing for those citizens. Of course, everything that I've read and these articles that are for the 15-minute city make it sound so wonderful. It is actually what I call a soft sell for something that will probably not work. And of course, there is the 15minutecity.com website and an article entitled Introducing the 15-Minute City Project. It says everyone living in a city should have ready access to essential urban services, access to opportunity, to urban amenities, to variety, and to other people is why people choose to live in cities. The easiest way to travel within an urban neighborhood is to walk or bike. No parking issues, no waiting for an Uber or Lyft or a bus or a train. It's simple. The inventor of the 15-minute city, Carlos Moreno, has 15-minute highlights, 4 key characteristics. Proximity. Things must be close. Diversity. Land uses must be mixed to provide a wide variety of urban amenities nearby. Density. There must be enough people to support a diversity of businesses in a compact land area. Ubiquity. These neighborhoods must be so common that they are available and affordable to anyone who wants to live in one. The 15-minute city compels us to think about time, capital, letters, time, first and foremost, rather than space. Like, am I over my 15 minutes of being outside? Moreno calls this chrono-urbanism. Wow, that's a fancy saying. How do people spend their time, and how can we build and adapt neighborhoods and cities so that they spend less of their time moving from point A to point B, and then points C and D? And never mind the fact that you're even thinking about time first and foremost on someone else's agenda, not your own. You're not making up your own time on things that you need to do, but letting someone else dictate how you spend your 15 minutes outside. So now let's go to the recent policy in Oxford, England. The audio clip of Katie Hopkins was talking about, where there will be a 15-minute city in January of 2024. But let me tell you, the 15-minute city is not just in Oxford, but turning up in Brisbane, and Melbourne, Barcelona, Paris, Portland, and Buenos Aires. It's pretty much going to be everywhere. Oxford, England is where the madness of the 15-minute system is first being implemented. The Green Agenda is taking inspiration from the days of the COVID-19 lockdown. Do you remember that? To this end, Oxford County Council, which is run by Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and the Green Party, wants to divide the city of Oxford into 6 15-minute districts. In these districts, it is said most household essentials will be accessible by a quarter-of-an-hour walk or bike ride, and so residents will have no need for a car. Well, okay, but that should be my choice. On the surface, these 15-minute neighborhoods might sound pleasant and convenient, but there is a coercive edge. The council plans to cut car use and traffic congestion by placing strict rules on car journeys. Residents will have to register their cars with the council and be tracked to count their journeys through the key gateways. The totalitarians that will be running this city will force it through by tracking and fines. Tracking? Did I hear the word tracking? As in smartphone tracking? But who benefits? Not the citizens of Oxford, that's for sure. In the end, these aggressively overmanaged schemes mean more paperwork, more jobs for bureaucrats, and more free passes for friends of big government. Oddly enough, something like this was tried from the 1960s in one Australian city, and it failed miserably. In the Australian city of Canberra, the original design was as a series of separate satellite cities by big belts of bush linked by freeways. The original small cities of North and South Canberra was essentially a 15-minute city. The idea was that each city had shops, jobs, mainly government offices, sporting facilities, entertainment, etc., sufficient for those in the city, so one would rarely need to leave the satellite city where one lived. Experience shows that it fails and is so unsuccessful. Here's why. What if people get a new job or promotion, but it's in a different city? Do you then move? Not when the job might only be for a couple of years, right? So inevitably, the jobs are frequently in different satellite cities to where people live. And what if people date or marry someone who lives in another city? more intercity travel is required. What if selling a house and buying another is prohibitive? A year's savings or more for most, so it's not really a reasonable option to move every time you get a new job or whatever it is that you want to do. What if the freeways linking the cities are often jammed at peak hours? That will be over your 15 minutes. Will being stuck in traffic count as your 15 minutes outside? This could be an issue. Meanwhile, travel distances are huge because the city is so very spread out. Because it was expected that people wouldn't travel out of their satellite city much. It's a lose-lose situation. The trial satellite cities and Canberra, Australia, were put on the back burner until they really thought the plan through. Designed by bureaucrats for bureaucrats. No doubt. The big picture is think global, act local. That's their slogan and solution for you and only you. Not them, not the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset crowd, or the global elites. On the RAIR, R-A-I-R, Rise, Align, Ignite, and Reclaim Foundation.com website, an article entitled UN Agenda 2030 Beware, 15-minute cities are another globalist scheme to control, punish, surveil, and imprison you. This states that to seize further control of people's lives, globalists are pushing the false idea that these cities will save the planet and help all of humanity. Instead, they are nothing more than a way for them to restrict, coerce, fine, punish, surveil, and limit the fundamental right of freedom of movement for residents. And now we have Agenda 2030. Well, that's not a new concept. A matter of fact, I know when they had Agenda 21, Agenda 21st Century. That was supposed to happen, but it didn't. Now, with a little more strength behind the WEF and the Great Reset, they are once again trying for the same climate change agenda, just under a different name. With the new technology, it gets even scarier. Their so-called plan for defeating climate change. Back then, at the United Nations, Agenda 21 was going nowhere fast. That's when they decided in 2015 it would be rebranded by socialists into Agenda 2030. Neither had anything to do with global warming and everything to do with reshaping our world according to their socialist vision. You know, I don't know about you, but I remember not that long ago, a relatively short time ago, when I used to really feel free. And of course, I know what you're thinking. We are free right now in the United States, but not without guilt. We are given a guilt trip every time we turn around or do anything against the climate change agenda or the COVID-19 vaccine agenda. After all, it's our fault for having such a big carbon footprint. Making choices on my own and for myself. Do you remember? I bet you do. Walking, driving, and using any means of transportation, buying items for pleasure, trying on clothes in clothing stores, having fun and going out with friends and family, having a pure desire of having something of my own, a life of my own, going out to eat with family members and close friends, having holidays with joy and laughter, with not a care in the world, making choices about my medical and mental health, not feeling I was being watched and then judged on a scorecard that will stop me from being able to do other activities. This brings me to a book that is still on my book list, as well as many other book lists in today's architecture and planning studies in colleges around the world. It's true. It's a really good book. It's called The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. This will be in the show notes. In the 50s and 60s, a woman named Jane Jacobs was an inspiration for us all as she became an activist for a small chunk of the area of Greenwich Village in New York City. Her rise to fame started as she fought the now infamous city planner Robert Moses against the building of a highway that would go straight through Washington Square Park. And she won. You can thank Jane Jacobs for preserving this park that is adored and used lovingly to this very day by New Yorkers and tourists alike. Her ultimate dream was to have freedom, sidewalks, blocks, parks, nature, and wonderful and safe places to go, for all to go. A place where everyone knew your name and had peaceful coexistence with one another. A place in your part of the city that you truly called home, even if for a short while it was a rented dwelling of sorts that you loved and cared for. If Jane Jacobs was alive today, she would most likely be for cities that had things to offer on the outside, that created communities and parks and interesting things for people to share outside, outdoor fountains and parks and cafes and meeting places, playgrounds and farmers markets, not locked up indoors, fresh air, health, and coming together as a community, vibrancy to keep cities bustling with neighborhoods, great economy, small mom and pop businesses, and meeting places like restaurants and corner stores, neighbors that had like-minded interests, well wishes for all, safety for all, freedom for all. Well, is this pie in the sky thinking in today's world, or can time really go back to the knowledge of shared space and a bright future for everybody, and without the fear of retribution, being locked down in a dystopian world that no doubt the World Economic Forum will most likely tell us that it's great and equate it to a utopia? Only time will tell. Here is Jane Jacobs talking about the ways cities ought to be run, sustainable, but for a different reason. It's all about socializing, networking, and having great neighborhoods, visiting mom and pop stores and parks to keep the neighborhoods vibrant, and not the climate change alarmism agenda that we've all been fed ad nauseum. Listen here to Jane Jacobs as she talks about healthy living and society and culture all coming together in one neighborhood. Roll that audio clip.
Is the place going to be interesting to walk in? Is it going to be useful to walk in? Is it going to get more so? Is it going to get less so? Now, over time, it's going to change. Taking neighborhoods that exist, thinking, what can you do here? And to make them feel that they're valued. So you have to pay attention to what the people in the neighborhood want. They don't want to live in an undignified place where it brands them as second or third class to be living there. So there are quite not expensive, but thoughtful things that can be done to show it isn't a second or third class place. Tree planting, traffic taming, putting in markets at the right time. That's one thing that would be meaningful and hopeful for the future. The only people who rode bicycles were kids. Now, just no end of adults use them to go to work, to do their shopping. The council has just adopted a pedestrian charter, which states that walking is the most sustainable form of transportation, and it should be everybody's right, and that everything that's done, every planning decision that's made, and so on, should take into account what it does to pedestrianization. You don't have to put the children into cars for everything, where they can go to school in groups on their own or on bikes. It becomes the freedom that goes with that. And when children latched on themselves to something active and free like skateboarding, this shouldn't be automatically disapproved of and attempts made to shoo them out of here and there. No, this is a healthy thing, and there are some places where that has been recognized. That's part of freedom. Everybody needs networks of other people, and it's impossible to make community and without networks.
Ah, Jane Jacobs, we need you today to help us. Hey, if you are one of my listeners who doesn't object to rules and mandates, and if you feel as though you must save the planet from high CO2 levels by cutting your carbon footprint by only being outside for a short time, and you are disgusted with gas cars that flood your city streets, polluting the air, and love the idea of mandated city lockdowns, I have something for you, and you might already have it and not even know. Roku City. I know some of you have those Roku TVs and that beautiful purple and pink screensaver that Roku offers. From the New York Times last week, a fun article, Pack Your Bags, We're Moving to Roku City. Subheading, instead of streaming a new TV show or movie, some Roku users are in it for the screensaver. You betcha, baby. That's me. Here, if you let a Roku TV idle long enough, you will eventually be transported to a magenta cityscape beyond time and space. The screensaver slowly pans across cozy diners, gothic mansions, and a sumptuous moonlit lagoon, all sheathed in a groovy Blade Runner-esque color palette. What's better than that? A small gallery of vivid Hollywood references is hidden in the skyscrapers that panel the horizon. Look closely and you'll find King Kong, Spider-Man, and the Emerald City of Oz. It is, in other words, a screensaver. And yet, this screensaver has taken on a life of its own. On social media, it's become known as Roku City, and fans are fantasizing about packing their bags to head there. Seasons are changing in Roku City. As the summer months left the calendar, a wash of auburn trees began to streak across a new district and a fresh set of spooky cafes. And the requisite filmic Easter eggs filled the city block. The design team has used the opportunity to show off the less urban areas, the parks and things like that, of their fantasy metropolis. It's part of a larger campaign within Roku's headquarters. The city is only getting bigger. That dream might be especially magnetic right now, particularly among young people as inflation continues to soar. Food prices are up. Same with gasoline, housing leases, and electric bills. But a trip to Roku City is always free of charge. All you need to do is turn on the television and set the remote down. A second home is hard to come by as a 20-something in New York City, said one of the people who heralded the screensaver on Twitter. Roku City is my own little slice of paradise. Even though being there in Roku City is in your very own home, Roku is making lockdowns seem almost fun again. Almost. Chris Barnes from TikTok moved to Roku City instead of Austin. Here he is with his girlfriend.
Hi, I'm Todd.
I'm Lauren.
And we recently just moved to Roku City. We've been living here for about 2 months now, and things have been going pretty good.
I originally wanted to move to Austin, but I'm really coming around.
Now, there are a few drawbacks to living in an up-and-coming city like Roku. For one, there's a lot of purple light. It's a bit unusual, but, nothing we can't handle.
And I went to the grocery store, and this is their milk.
One benefit, though, hardly any traffic.
That might be because I haven't seen a single living person yet.
I will admit, I do think the purple might be because of some type of radiation leak. We've experienced some vomiting and hair loss.
I wanted to move to Austin, but no, we have to move to Roku City.
They don't give you free Netflix, free HBO Max, free Hulu Plus. You don't get that in Austin. You only get that in Roku City.
Well, the benefits definitely outweigh the bad stuff, especially during lockdowns. Just to let you know, and a sidebar here, in 2023, one of my goals is to read a book a week. I just finished 1984, and it is unbelievable. You must read it. But next on my book list is The Most Dangerous Game, written by Richard Connell, and it is so interesting, and you will love it. It's a short story. It won't take very long, but you will be talking about it, and you will be sharing this book. I would love to know what you think. I sure hope that you enjoyed this episode about the 15-minute city, and I'd love to hear from you. My email address is truthdetectivepodcast@gmail.com. And go to truthdetectivepodcast.com to get to all of my episodes. There's about 200 of them, and there's always something that resonates with everybody. So that is so cool, and I want that for you. Wherever you are listening, subscribe, follow, and share. Everybody needs to know about the 15-minute city. I will see you next time on Truth Detective. Okay, bye-bye.